Hello. Hmm, Hello. Going to wait a minute and see. I can't get a couple people before I start. Thank you for coming on. Whew. Beautiful Sunday. Got one person watching. Okay, two more. Two. All right, we'll get started. I didn't have my little intro because apparently that was connected to something don't have right now. So we'll get started without it. Hello, welcome to Pardon My Positivity. My name is Paula, and I'm your host for today's show, for all the shows, in fact. I am an accountant by day, bartender by night, and a happy chick all the time. I'm happy not because life is easy, but because I choose to be happy. And this show is all about helping you to make that same choice in your life. So, the people who are on my Facebook app, I don't have a guest today, just give me a little wave or a cheer because you can hear me. That would be fantabulous. Just so I know that everything's working well. I'm by myself today. I'll give you a little background of the show while I'm on here. To start off, to let you know that this show started in November of last year, and the whole point of the show is to give you guys tips and ideas on how you can make positivity more a part of your life. Typically, I have a guest, but this week I'm by myself doing the program. And before we get started on today's program, I'm going to share a little bit of personal stuff because I want to give you guys an update on how Paula is doing. Paula is doing wonderfully, even though she had some big changes in her life real recently. For those of you who don't know and don't know me in real life, the company I worked for the last 15 years has closed its doors and is officially shut down now. I was the chief financial officer for the company, so that means big changes in my life. And in my life, I have decided that rather than finding another job in the corporate arena, I am going to focus on my business and the aspects of my life that are surrounded with positivity, like this podcast, Pardon My Positivity. So you'll be seeing more from me and my company called PGL Business Solutions. My company is, what it does is it helps other businesses with compliance, payroll, bookkeeping. It does all of the little things that people tend to overlook so that they can focus on the passion that they have. So regardless of if your passion is grooming dogs or painting houses or selling real estate, whatever it is that you enjoy doing, you can focus on that. And I will focus on things like if you need a license for the county of Northampton and how to pay that Medicare that you've been taking out of your employees' checks. So if you know anybody that can use my services, hit me up. And more importantly, for those of you who don't know, I am a certified life coach, and I will be starting a branch to my business that will specifically deal with life coach and life coaching, and with an obvious focus on being positive in the workplace. So look for more things on those lines. But one of the greatest and most wonderful, positive things in my life is my actual podcast, which is what we're here for tonight. And tonight's program is a part 2. So about 2 months ago, January 22nd, for those of you who want to run back through YouTube and watch the original episode, we did an episode called Happiness After the Narcissist. And we decided right at the beginning of the show that it was going to be a 2-parter because it was way too much information for me and my special guest to cover in an hour. So we decided that we would first focus on recognizing the narcissist and recognizing narcissistic behaviors and the potential for the fact that you may be in a narcissistic relationship. And then we decided we would do a second half on how to recover and how to leave a narcissistic relationship. So, part of my whole reorganization of my life, some of you may have noticed, my background is different today. I'm coming to you from my kitchen. This is what Paula's kitchen looks like, complete with fresh flowers. Instead of my regular studio upstairs, because since I'm focusing on my new company, the room upstairs that usually houses just a bunk bed for my grandkids, and my podcast is now becoming the PGL Business Solutions office. So for a couple weeks, you'll be getting the view from my kitchen and my bananas and pears and the back door. So, but back to happiness after the narcissist. Like I said, me and the special guest decided it was going to have to be 2 episodes. And tonight we're going to do episode 2. I tried really hard to reconnect with my special guest, and I was really hoping that we could do the program together, but 2 months is long enough for us to wait for part 2. It was wonderful that we were able to give you information on recognizing narcissistic behaviors, but I felt like it was really time that we could let you guys know some tips on how you can recover from those kinds of relationships. So decided that we'll just do a solo. So, let's get started with today's episode. As a reminder, you can hop on and chat with me at any time. So if you want to talk to me, it's probably best that you be on my personal page, which is Paula Lynch on Facebook. So log on to Facebook and be on that page, and I'll see your chats immediately if you want to talk to me about tonight's episode. It is also streaming on my page, Glitter, Shoes, and Happiness 2 on Facebook. It's also streaming on YouTube, but unfortunately I can't watch all the streaming sites simultaneously for comments. So if you want to comment and have me see it right away, please go to the Paula Lynch page, because that's the one I have up right on the other side of my screen. So a little recap of our episode 2 months ago. Some of the most important things that we should recognize. One, first and foremost, and most importantly, out of any episode we ever do, we talk about relationships where you may be encountering some form of abuse. If at any time you recognize that you're in an abusive relationship, emotional, verbal, physical abuse, please get support and get help. This planet is a better place with you in it, and we need you here to make our tomorrows brighter, and you can't make them brighter if you can't be with us. So please get the support and help you need to end any kind of abusive relationship. I will say that 1,000 times. If you don't have family and friends you feel you can go to, there are support groups, and right to the show. The world needs you in it. So first plug right there, because that's important every single time. So then let's get into the narcissist. We covered at our last show that there's a difference between being a narcissist and having narcissistic behaviors, right? A person can have narcissistic behaviors and not be a narcissist. And when we did the show, a lot of people got back to me saying like, oh my gosh, I did this one, I did that one, I do this one. In fact, me and a friend of mine, we joke all the time that whenever he's walking in front of me, one of us is like, hey, narcissist, quit walking in front of me. Hey, you're a narcissist because you walk in front of me. And that was one of the behaviors typical of a narcissist. But just because you tend to walk in front of people because you walk faster doesn't make you a narcissist. So as I recap, I'm going to remind everybody that if at any time you're hearing the traits of a narcissist or some examples of narcissistic behavior, and you start to think to yourself, oh my gosh, I do that, I might be a narcissist, then you're definitely not a narcissist. Most important thing to remember about a narcissist is they don't have the empathetic capacity to sit here and think, oh, I might be a narcissist. They're way too self-absorbed with themselves and focused on how they feel to ever consider the fact that they might be hurting someone else. So if you're thinking, I might be a narcissist, you're not, right? Just like if you were thinking, I might be crazy, you're not. Because a crazy person who really thinks, rocks talk and there's an alien in their closet or whatever it is, they don't ever think they're crazy. They think rocks really talk, right? So let's talk about some of the traits, recap some of the traits or some of the things that narcissists do. I want to remind everybody that narcissists are not necessarily, we're not talking about relationships that are just with significant others. The last time we did the show, and it'll probably happen in this one too, there'll be a tendency to talk about romantic relationships, significant other relationships, but the narcissist in your life could be your parent, your sibling, a friend. It can even be your child. So these behaviors, these traits, these relationships can apply to anyone, not just your significant other. It just happens that it tends to be more popular in relationships, romantic, significant other relationships. Okay, so some of the traits that we talked about or behaviors that we talked about in our last episode. So some of the big ones, we won't go through all of them, but some of the big ones, so we'll recap, is narcissists don't really listen to you. So, you told them 87 times that you don't like asparagus and they keep giving you asparagus. It's because they don't really care how you feel. So they like asparagus, so you should just like asparagus. Narcissists blame you for everything. That was one of my favorite things. I can't do X because you always do Y. So that's a trait of a narcissist. Then let's see, other ones we had, the silent treatment or withholding things. This one is so close to my heart that if you withhold any affection at all, if I try to hug you and you're like, oh, wow, that's a trigger. I don't like that at all because we withheld affection as part of the narcissistic behaviors. Let's see, hypocrites. Narcissists tend to be hypocrites pretty badly, where they will criticize other people for behaviors but do the same things themselves, like criticize someone for cheating on their taxes and then at the same time hide money from their spouse, which is essentially the same kind of idea, or just blatant hypocrisy, what's good for the goose, good for the gander kind of thing, where they don't want their spouse to have male friends, but they want to have female friends. They don't want their significant other to go out and hang out with other people, but they want to go out on Saturday night and hang out with other people. So hypocrisy is a big thing with narcissists. And one of the ones that really touched base for me and the special guest was apologies with a narcissist. Apologies with a narcissist are never apologies. Apologies with a narcissist are just a way to shut you up, a way to end the argument, a way to get what they want. And they quite often sound like, I'm sorry, but it was stupid that you did that. Or, I'm sorry you feel that way. Or, I'm sorry that you can't accept that. So they're not really apologizing for their actions. They're apologizing for your feelings. So saying that your feelings are invalid and they're sorry that you have them. So narcissistic apologies are big thing that we pointed out last time we came around. So those are some of the traits that or some of the things that narcissists do. Not traits, those are some of the things that narcissists do, little signs. Let's talk about the traits real quick before we get into how you get out of there. Let's see. Narcissists have a disproportionate level of self-concern. So many of us struggle with the idea of helping ourselves before we help others, right? All the time. They make episodes of TV shows where they have an argument, a husband and wife have an argument because when the mask comes down in the plane, do you put on your mask first and then put on the other person's mask? Of course, you're supposed to put on your mask first, because if you don't survive, you can't help somebody else. So you put your mask on first. That's what they tell you to do. But a lot of us struggle emotionally, ethically with the putting the mask on ourselves first, especially if the person next to us is someone we love, right? Narcissists don't struggle with that decision. Narcissist immediately puts a mask on their face and then has a cup of tea and makes donuts before they put a mask on somebody else's face. No, seriously though, they have a disproportionate sense of self-worth, that they're more important than anybody else in the room. Other traits: they're extremely sensitive to criticism. They have a significant need for approval. And see, these are where you're going to start finding things on here. Like when I read this list, I'm like, oh, I really need people to like me. Maybe I'm a narcissist. Remember, I read something and you think it's you. You're not a narcissist. Let's see, they have poor self-esteem. And it's shown through being arrogant or getting upset about situations where it's obvious that they have poor self-esteem. So like they really feel badly about themselves. So it's bully syndrome. We've all seen that, right? They feel badly about themselves. Other people feel badly about themselves, because if everybody feels bad, then I can't be that bad if everybody feels bad. My life is average if everybody feels bad. So let's see. It's difficult for narcissists to have relationships. They're preoccupied with beauty and wealth and success. They tend to be vain and prideful, and they lack, remorse, empathy, compassion. They really can't relate to other people. So those are the traits that we know narcissists have. Now, please remember that narcissistic traits or narcissistic tendencies doesn't make someone a narcissist, right? For the majority of my life, I had very low self-esteem, and pretty much every day I would look at myself and be, oh my gosh, what is wrong with you? And that didn't make me a narcissist. It made me Paula, not a narcissist. So those are the traits. So you're going to start thinking about, is the person I'm in a relationship with, friend relationship, marriage, parent-child relationship, is the person I'm in a relationship, do they display these things? And more importantly, is the relationship having a negative effect on me, where I am being lost in this relationship, where I'm no longer flourishing and thriving because of how this person's traits and tendencies are affecting me? So after giving it some thought, and I really do suggest popping back to January 22nd, getting all the details from everything. Once you take a look and really examine it, and you think maybe this is where I'm at, then it's time to move on, right? So the biggest step, and when you realize you have to move on, is admitting that there's narcissistic abuse. And it's okay. Let me point this out. It's okay to leave a relationship with a person who has narcissistic traits. I want to be perfectly clear. I do not think my ex-husband has narcissistic disorder. I don't think he has the actual clinical disorder of being narcissistic. I believe he has strong narcissistic tendencies that he was unwilling to remedy. So it prevented us from having a healthy relationship. I do not believe that he exhibits all of the traits, and I don't think he's irredeemable. I just believe he couldn't find it in himself to redeem those things for the benefit of our marriage. So there came a point where I had to admit that this relationship was unhealthy for me. So you have to get to that point where you can admit that the relationship is hurting you. And this is true for all kinds of addictive things. It's not very much different. These kinds of relationships are not very much different from other addictive behaviors where you have to admit there's a problem. So when it comes to these relationships, narcissists are drawn to empaths, and empaths feed narcissistic relationships. And a narcissist will actually seek out an empath because we fill that need for them to be so important. We empower them, we enable their behaviors so that they get what they want out of a relationship, right? And we as empaths, that's what I am. I'm an overly compassionate person. Sometimes I can relate to serial killers. We as empaths, we have this huge need to help people around us. So narcissists actually wind up being something we're drawn to because we're like, I can help them. They need me. They need my help. They need me to give to them. And I'm a giver and I'm going to give to them. Right. And so we give and give and give until we have nothing left to give and we're just hurting ourselves, but it's our nature to give. So those two relationships really feed each other and coagulate very well until the empath can recognize and let go, right? And so you need to recognize that's what it is. So myself, even now, I find myself on occasion making excuses for my ex's past behaviors, like, well, if I had been more patient for this, or he can't help the world he grew up in, things along those lines. And I even now need to stop doing that for him. His life, his choices, his attitudes, his behaviors are his responsibility. And I don't need to make excuses for him, just like you don't need to make excuses for the people who have damaged your life. What you need to do is protect yourself and the other people in your life who are affected by that relationship. So you've now admitted that there is a bad relationship and it's narcissistic tendencies or a narcissistic person. So the next thing you do is what I recommend to do in any part of your life where you're wanting to know more information, is do research. We live in this wonderful time where everything you could ever want to know is right there at your fingertips. And you can find out anything you need to know about getting support, narcissistic tendencies, buying a house, getting an education. You can find anything you need on any aspect of this escaping the relationship on the internet. And be careful, because the internet still has some crazy wonky things. Maybe you don't want to take advice from the guy on Snapchat, but I tend to look at scientific studies or journals to get information about these kinds of things. Use reliable resources, but with every other opinion you're ever going to develop in your life, do the research and make an educated choice. And so educate yourself on what's happening in your life. I mean, I'm living proof that I was not a very happy person. And when I decided I was going to educate myself on how to be a happy person, here I am, 18 months later, close to 18 months later, the happiest I've ever been, because I decided I was going to research and find out the information and make myself happy, choose to be happy. So get the information you need. There's also a plethora of books, but I am evoking you guys. I'm saying to you guys that I want you guys to help each other on this matter too. Fill the comments, fill YouTube, go on Glitter Shoes and Happiness too, and make recommendations to people. If you've lived through a narcissistic relationship, if you know of a support group that helps people in these kinds of situations, then go ahead and share it. Help each other learn more about the situation. For those of you who don't know, when people pop in, I always like to recognize what they chatted. And my first comment is from my very good friend, James. Hi, James. Hi, James. Just like my Scarlett would say. So after you look up some information, get some support. I'm extremely lucky. I have a huge family and a huge supportive family. I have a plethora of wonderful friends who are there for me all the time. When my marriage fell apart, two of them in particular, two friends of mine who owned a barbecue pit, and I can remember the day that he left. One of them, I called one of them, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, anything you need, I'm here. I'll be right down. You need to go out. We need to get you stuff." And I was like, "No, I'm good. I'll be all right." And then the other one, they're polar opposites, was like, "Oh my God, I'm so happy for you." And I'm here at my house bawling. "What are you talking about? My husband left. How could you be happy for me?" And he was like, "Oh, you get to be happy every day now because that was removed from your life." So that's just two different extremes of two of my closest friends that supported me through the transition over the last 3 years. So get support. If you don't have family and friends that you feel like you can lean on, go to your church. There are support groups through medical centers. There are support groups online that you can join, that you can get information from. So get the support you need. And in some cases, the support you need is going to be therapy, a therapist or a medical doctor. There's nothing wrong with therapy. We live in an age now where you never have to be embarrassed that you go to therapy or go to a psychiatrist or go to a psychologist. Don't be afraid to put that out there. I've been there. Most of us have been there. It's therapeutic for a reason. And also, one of the places you might need to reach out to for support might be a lawyer. Right? Hi, Kevin. I see you. Kevin says hi too. Thank you. I love when people write in. Makes my day and gives me rainbows and makes my dimples just a little bit deeper. So, lawyer. You might need a lawyer. I recognize, everyone should recognize that it may not be that simple to leave a narcissistic relationship. Some relationships just are not easy to leave. You'll hear me say it a lot, that you are not required to maintain relationships that steal your happiness. And this is absolutely true. You are not required to keep relationships with people who hurt you. But sometimes it takes steps. And sometimes those steps need a lawyer. So if you need a lawyer, get a lawyer, get advice from a lawyer. There are a lot of lawyers that can help you out for a small retainer, or can give you a free consultation. So reach out to family and ask who they have used, or friends who they have used, get recommendations if that's what you need. Because some of the other things that you might wind up needing to do in order to leave a narcissistic relationship might be to compile documentation or to copy things so that you have them for your records, like birth certificates or passports or the deed to your home. A lawyer can advise you on those things, but be prepared to do those things. Another thing you probably will have to do to leave a narcissistic relationship is save up some money. Especially when we're talking about romantic relationships, when we're talking about relationships with a significant other, your finances are commingled. And you're spending all your money on building a life together. So how do you leave a relationship when all of your finances are tied up together? So it might mean working extra hours. It might mean having a second job. But if you're not in a situation where I'm blessed that if in my situation, I was able to just, say, choose me or leave, and he decided to leave instead of choose me. So I kept my house and everything else as part of the agreement. And I'm also lucky enough that my father happens to still maintain a home where he has 2 extra bedrooms. So me or any of my siblings or my children or my nieces or nephews, if they had a situation where they needed to escape a relationship, they could go to my father's house. I have an entire room here that's just a closet. Someone could come here. So, but if you don't have those kinds of things in your life, you may need to make some preparations financially to leave a narcissistic relationship. Another important thing in your preparation to leave a narcissistic relationship is to be quiet. Well, this doesn't mean, you don't seek support, but you don't go around telling everybody what it is you're doing, and you especially don't talk to the person who is hurting you about it. Now, I'm all for making relationships work, and when you get to the point where you realize you're in a narcissistic relationship with somebody, this is at the point where you've already had all the conversations that you can have. You've already explained to them that, oh, when you do this thing that hurts me, and they continue to do the thing that hurts you, you've already tried to work through the differences in your relationship, and it is not happening. And it is because they are doing what they're doing, and it cannot be resolved. Okay. So, but I recognize, if somebody's poking you like this, and I use this analogy, so if you've heard it before, forgive me, but somebody's poking you like this, when they first poke you, you're like, whoa, why you poke me? But after a while, you don't even really feel this poke. So when the narcissist is poking you all the time with their behaviors, you kind of get nose blind from the Febreze commercials, and you forget that somebody's poking you all the time, right? And so you're prepping these things, doing stuff, and getting support and making photocopies, and all the time the narcissist is still doing this thing. Eventually, this spot on my arm is going to get black and blue, and eventually even this tap, which is a nothing tap, will really start to hurt every time it happens. And that's the point you're at when you're ready to leave the narcissist, that every time they touch that spot, it hurts. And so you want to react, and you want to say, oh my God, this is why I'm going. I'm not going to let you hurt me anymore. But when you do that, they will react, and they will react in a negative way, because they want to win this fight, right? And so my cycle, the cycle I went through all the time, every time it got to that point where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't take it anymore, then he would say, well, we need to fix this, so let's fix it like this. And then I get this little glimmer of hope, and I'd be like, okay, well, we're gonna fix this. All right, we're gonna fix this. And then I was in for another 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, right, before I could before I cycled again, where I was like, no, that hurts, that hurts, that hurts, that hurts. So try to be quiet about it. And lastly, when you escape, the most important thing is don't go back. And I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, so I'm always open and honest with you guys about the things that happened in my life. So I'll be real honest about it. Me and my ex, we circled back around a couple times. I entertained taking him back, oh my gosh, maybe a half a dozen times, because I got lonely, because we had a party and we were both at the party with the family, because I missed camping, because Christmas is so hard when you're single. I entertain getting back into this relationship and restarting this until January of last year, 2022, where I was like, I have to remove all of these triggers that make me believe that relationship could work, because it is not a happy, healthy relationship. It's never going to work. So I need to remove all these things. So I stopped doing a lot of the things I was doing and rebuild a life a year ago. So make sure you don't go back, but it's okay if you entertain the idea or you cycle or whatever. You can accept those things. So this is, you're getting out. I'm saying so a lot today, and I apologize. My public speaking was a little off. I'm going to blame it on the bad week. So let's talk about how you recover now that you've left the narcissistic relationship, because I'm already a half hour in. And it never ceases to amaze me how much I talk like my father in an hour. So you've left the relationship. You've labeled it abuse. You recognize you need to go. You've gotten out of the relationship. How do you find happiness after all that? And I see your comment, Kevin. Thank you. It is a neat talk. It's a neat talk, and I think it's a necessary talk, because too many people need to really know that, one, they can leave that relationship, and two, how they can find happiness after leaving the relationship, because that might actually be the hardest part of leaving any relationship, is because we revisit, the happy parts and focus on those because we're lonely and because we didn't find fulfillment somewhere else. So we have a tendency to revisit. And if we're going to move on, we have to find happiness within ourselves and not rely on other people. That's really the key to most things in your life. If you are happy with yourself, if you have a positive attitude, you can accomplish just about anything else, because you have the right frame of mind and you have the right heart. So here are some ways that you can recover after the narcissist. And it would be ill-advised of me not to mention that these are all also ways that you can improve your happiness and positivity every day. So some of them are going to be repeats from other shows, but there's a reason for that. All of these things improve your positivity. So the first one is to set boundaries. When I first ventured out being single, when I first started dating again, I had an insane amount of boundaries. So many boundaries, especially with men, but for everyone, because I had been so injured, so affected by my previous relationship, that if somebody was just irritated me, not like a family member or something, but if somebody on Facebook or Instagram wrote a comment that hit me and made me a little, oh, that wasn't real nice, immediately block, get rid of them. I don't care, out of my life, because my boundaries were so tight, right? So this is how I'm going to explain it. When the relationship is over with a narcissist, you have this little ball of light, this little ball of hope, right there. And you hold it real close to you, and you want to protect this ball of hope. So you put this cage around your little ball of hope to protect it, right? And as time goes on, the little light, starts to grow. And as it starts to grow, you start to love yourself more. You start to be happier. You start to experience genuine gratification with the things in your life. You're growing as a person. You're making big strides. And so your hope light starts to grow. And eventually it starts pushing on the cage. And this cage is all the boundaries you've set for everybody. So, you say something I don't like, I'm not talking to you anymore, because that's my boundary, because I don't like people make me feel in bad emotions at all. I don't like that, right? I don't want any negativity. I don't want any hurt whatsoever. So this is my cage. So eventually your ball of hope will get big enough that it will break the cage that you have wrapped around it, right? And it doesn't burst the cage, but it kind of pulls the cage away from it. So the cage becomes less important, and the boundaries become less important, because the hope, the self-love, the happiness is so strong that it can withstand more of the world around. So the boundaries become less important as your hope, as your light gets bigger. Do you understand that? So like, for instance, one of my big rules about dating was I could never date a man who smoked. I smoked for 25 years. I quit smoking in 2018. This was a huge accomplishment for me. I helped to improve my longevity of life. It made me a healthier person. It made me look younger. There's all kinds of great benefits to quitting smoking. But one of my big rules was I would never date a smoker because I was so terrified that just by being in the same proximity as a smoker, uh, I would use that to cope with stress, right? So I would be tempted to smoke to deal with my problems, with my fear. So my cage contained the rule that no smokers, I'm not even going to hang out with smokers because I can't have that temptation around me. But now that my self-love is so big, I can date a smoker, I can hang out with a smoker because I deal with life differently and I'm not tempted to smoke. So that's an example of how your boundaries change as time goes on. So it's okay if your boundaries are really restrictive at first. Well, hola, señor Shu. Glad to see you. But it's okay that your boundaries change and that they're tight at first and they get bigger as time goes on. It's natural. Okay. Another important step is don't retaliate. Like we talked about the poking, right? Sometimes there's a reason why it's a path less traveled, two rights don't make a wrong, all those kinds of things that people say, and you're as bad as they are. But the truth of the matter is, if you're constantly trying to retaliate against people who are hurting you, you're taking energy that should be used to love yourself and letting them have it. You're letting them win. Being irritated by those things, reacting to those things is only stealing your joy. In most cases, it's giving the narcissist what they want. You're giving them attention. You're giving them, what they need to feel good about themselves. Whereas you disengage, then you're destroying their ability and you're ruining their day. So try really hard not to retaliate. Sometimes it can be really hard. I have somebody I'm related to that deals with somebody outside of her family all the time. It's just awful, and does awful things all the time. And it's really tempting to react in a negative way, but I'm so proud of my relative that they don't do that. You can see it weighs on them all the time. Well, they want to. I want to too. I want to call and be like, yo, you're a psycho. But they don't. And it's saving themselves love and joy by not reacting in that way. And in the end, even though it's hard right now, in the end, they'll find themselves in a better place because they chose the high road. So try not to retaliate. Get support, which we talked about before. But another important way to improve your happiness and to recover is to have a schedule. Your body needs certain things just to function on a regular basis. So it needs enough rest. It needs the right food. It needs vitamins. It needs exercise. All of these things are best performed when you have a routine. So try to develop a routine. There's this thing about negative emotion. Negative emotions like to linger. Positive emotions like to linger too. But we tend to let negative emotions linger. And the best way to combat that lingering is to have a routine. So what that means is if you get up every day at 6 o'clock in the morning, then on a day when you don't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, then you make yourself get up, you're combating the negative emotions that might have kept you in bed all day. So try to have a routine, and that'll help you to get through the sticky parts of every day and not get stuck in the negative emotions. And it also does things like give you other things like your vitamins and your exercise and your drinking enough water. Let's see. Expect sticky days. This is one of my favorite ones, especially lately, because the last month or so has been so critical for me with the closing of the business. But you're allowed to have bad days. Far too often in our society, we take bad days as failures, right? And a bad day doesn't make a bad life. So when something happens in your, I use the diet example all the time because this is the most common one, right? You're doing great. You're having your shake for breakfast and your shake for lunch, because we're jumping back to 1997. I don't know, Slim Fast. And then you're eating a sensible dinner, and you do that all week long. And then Saturday, you FUBAR and you have a half a sleeve of Oreos and a pizza, right? Well, just because you had a bad day doesn't mean all of your work for the rest of the week was erased. But our mentality is always like, I screwed up. I might as well just give up. And you can't have that kind of mentality. You have to stay focused and accept the sticky days along with the good days, and expect sticky days. Well, you guys see it on my page. If I feel a sticky day coming, if I feel things are hard, really try to amp up the good in my life to combat the stickiness. So I'll make plans with a friend. I'll turn on my music right away. Sometimes it'll be midday and I will go up, re-shower, redress, restart my entire day because I can't get out of the funk that I've been in up until 2 o'clock. So that's okay. Sticky days are okay. Let's see. Express your emotions. This one is my favorite because I was not really allowed to express my emotions for all these years. I naturally vibrate at a very high level. So in my life, especially when I was younger, I operated up here. So, but my significant other, he operated down here. So he would do a lot of things to make sure I stayed on a low level and just beneath the narcissistic behaviors, because if I was up here, he was uncomfortable. He needed me to be below where he was as far as happiness levels were concerned. So I spent a lot of time repressing my emotions to suit that situation, right? And that was absolutely the wrong thing to do, because it was destroying who I am, hiding who I am as a person, because I naturally vibrate here, right? So over time, one of his biggest complaints was that I was too emotional. And in fact, he had a point. It's not that I was too emotional, it was I was reacting emotionally. And here's something I've been saying to my kids for my entire life. You can't control how you feel, but you can control what you do with your feelings. So you can scream and yell when you're angry, or you can have a hot bath and read a book, and then an hour later say, hey, listen, I didn't like the thing that you said to me earlier, so maybe we can try to communicate differently, right? We all have people in our lives where we all have relationships where we need to express our emotions, but we're so geared on either hiding our emotions or being overly emotional so that everything is offensive, right? So I'm going to use an example from one of my friends again. I have a friend who cares for another person and spent a really long time hiding all the emotions involved with that person, for fear of rejection, because that's not the way he was raised. So he's been hiding all of those emotions. And now it's reached a point in their relationship where he feels like he has to share them all now because he feels threatened that she'll leave the relationship. And he is scared now that the relationship was affected by the fact that he didn't share his emotions. And so now he's trying to make up for it. And the truth be told, he probably would have gotten farther had he been more open during the entire time. And you guys know I'm very open about how I feel about things. So when somebody says something that makes me feel bad, I'll say, hey, that made me feel bad. I didn't like it. And it might take me a day or two. I might be sitting at a steak dinner and say, sometimes that makes me feel bad. But I will put it out there, and I'll put out maybe a way we can get around it and find a solution to the emotions we're feeling, negative emotions we're feeling. Let's see, another great one on how you can recover is to rediscover yourself. A year ago, I talked about this already. I decided that I was going to change everything, and that brought me back to this Paula, right? And got me back on a high vibration. And I didn't, it's not my marriage failed and I immediately shot up here. You know, I literally spent 2 years way down here, just trying to trickle up and pulling up every once in a while and falling back down. And it wasn't until just over a year ago that I could build myself up. And you can build it taking classes, educating yourself, spending time with people, creating new relationships. There's all kinds of ways that you can build yourself up and rediscover yourself. Get to the person you used to be or to the new person you want to be after the narcissistic relationship. It's really important to have self-care. So you need to make sure you're taking time for yourself, regardless of that, what that means to you. If it's bathtub and tea and a book, or if it's, bungee jumping or jumping out of airplanes, whatever it is you need. Another big one is reflection. That'll help you to recover. You guys see it with me every day. I reflect in my ponderings with my coffee and tink. So I try to give myself a little time on a regular basis to think about where my life's at and where my life is going, what things I have to be appreciative for, what things I need to work on. Reflecting, one, it helps you to center yourself every day, but it also helps you to be very appreciative of the things you do have in your life. You tend to be happier if you appreciate all the little things you've already got going for you. So reflection is very important to building a happy life and recovering. And then the most important thing is to forgive yourself. And so this is the part where I'm gonna probably get a little emotional, because this is a hard thing for people to do, and it's a hard thing for me to do too. So some of you know that I am a suicide attempt survivor, but I can remember having my first suicidal thought when I was only 4 years old. So my life is not the worst life you could have by any means. There are a lot of people who have much harder situations than I do. But in my life, I've had depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts and hard things that happened throughout my entire life. But the thing that I recognize now, and that I recognized quite a few years ago, is that if I am going to be happy with who I am, I have to be okay with who I was, right? So I have to accept the 4-year-old little girl who was sad. I have to accept the 18-year-old girl who wanted to die. The greatest gift God ever gave me was my children, and not just because I love them insanely, but from the age of 18 for at least 20 years, probably longer, the thing that kept me alive so many times was my children. That the many times I revisited those horrible thoughts, it was because I had them to look after. I wasn't just deciding on life for me, right? So all of those times when I crawled into bed next to a little, I have to accept that mom who felt like she was failing if I'm going to love who I am today. I have to accept the woman who had a 20-year relationship that failed. And while sometimes it does bring a tear to my eye, I love 4-year-old Paula. I love 18-year-old Paula. I love and accept the young mom with 4 kids and very little direction, because I absolutely love the life I have right here. My little ball of hope and happiness and self-love is huge. My life around me with the people that I adore is absolutely wonderful. And so I forgive little Paula for being scared. I forgive teenage Paula for wanting to die. I forgive young mom Paula for making not the best decisions every time. And I forgive the woman who was in a 20-year relationship and trying to save a marriage all by herself and damaging herself in the process of it. I forgive her because I love me. So there's the big thing that you have to do in order to recover is to find it within you to accept and to love and to forgive the person you were. So, that's a great way to end a show, right? With a knot in my throat and my eyes hurting. Good thing I'm a bartender at night, so I can make myself a great drink when I'm all done. Anyway, hi Debbie, I see you there. Thank you for tuning in. And Kevin, I'm glad that you're sharing the things that are tough for you while we talk about things on the show today. I hope that you find some help with this. And please look back at some of the other episodes. All of the things, just about all of the things we talked about you could do to recover are things that we mentioned in other shows or that are on the pages of Glitter Shoes and Happiness Too, where we talk about ways to find happiness in your everyday. So I hope that all of you enjoyed the show today. A big news flash. I'm going to be switching the shows to Thursdays now instead of Sundays. I'm finding it with opening my new business and with all the endeavors that I'm kind of rolled up in, I'm finding it'll fit into my schedule a little better if I do it on a weekday. And I'm at the pub on Wednesdays. I've got obligations on Tuesdays. So we're going to put it in on Thursday and change it to Thursday night. So I hope a lot of you can still tune in live when it's on a Thursday instead of a Sunday. If you can't watch us live, it's always still posted on Facebook and on YouTube. So follow us there. The next show is going to be Happiness is Homemade with my friend Joey, where we're going to talk about how important it is to have positivity in your household for your family and your children, because he's a great guy I know who owns a garage and has a wonderful family at home. So we're going to focus on his home life, even though I'm sure Joey would love to spend an entire hour talking about fast cars. We're going to talk about his kids and his wonderful wife, Jen, who I love so much. So that's it for this week. I hope you got as much out of the program as I did. And I hope to see you on Thursday. Please do some research, develop your own opinions. Please get support. Please get help if you need help. And I will see you guys here in just a couple of days, because Thursday is only like 4 days away. So the next episode will be in just a couple of days with me and Joey. And until I see you again, remember, as always, the key to happiness is you.